Hey guys, what's going on? It's Dimer here, and in today's video with Peroxide right around the corner, we're going to be talking about Peroxide versus Type Soul. Now, I've seen a couple other YouTubers do this, but I wanted to give my opinions and the facts that I have laid out here today to give you guys a more broad aspect on what is the better game between Peroxide and Type Soul. So the first category we're going to be talking about is content. All right, we're going to be talking about content. And when we're going to go to the content, the first section is exploration, because it's a very basic one to do. Both maps are really basic, and Peroxide is getting rework on their Katakura Town or their New York. They're getting rework on it, so I guess I'm gonna give the content, the exploration side to Peroxide, but you could really toss it up to either one. But I'm just gonna give it to Peroxide because I just like the aesthetic of it. The next one we're gonna talk about is Quest. Quest is kind of like more the diversity of which one has the better quests and way more options, you know, and I'm going to give that to Peroxide. Type Soul is really just like you grab the quest, you fight them between like 4 missions, and that's it. And then when you get past grade 2, then you do like raid XP to level up and stuff, and that's your quest. And then grips. That's pretty much it though for Type Soul and Peroxide. I'd give the quest to Peroxide. And then now we're going to go on to bosses. I'm not going to take into account Bankai, Res, and Volt fights right now because I'm going to be talking that later in the video. So just overall bosses in general. I'm going to talk about the overall bosses in the game. And obviously, there's only 2 bosses in Type Soul, and they both kind of suck. Both bosses really suck, and they're really boring to fight. Not really fun at all in terms of boss fights in a game. I know Peroxide only has 2 bosses as well, but they're way more fun than Type Soul's bosses. So that's why I'm going to give this one to Peroxide versus Type Soul's kind of dumb boss fights, you know. Now we're going to talk about like the biggest subcategory in the content section, which is endgame content. In Peroxide's endgame content, you could do a list of things for your endgame content. There's a list of stuff you can do, and I'm gonna list them off right now. You could do time gates, which have a bunch of different game modes, time bubbles, invasions, incursions, and ranked PvP. There's also stuff you can do in Type Soul. You know, the list of things is endless for Type Soul, which you can do in endgame content. You can do raids and clan wars. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty much it for Type Soul. Raids and Clan Wars, which is pretty much Raids 2.0 and Conquest for Clan Wars. That's pretty much it for Type Soul. I think Peroxide has a way better endgame content right now. Obviously, Type Soul took a step in the right direction with the Clan Wars, but they have a lot to do to catch up on endgame content for their game. Now we're going to talk about the last part of content, which is replayability. Type Soul's only real replayability is kind of like you get the accessories, the 3 meta accessories for your whatever race you are, and then you do Clan Wars, and then you get a new slot. But you can't even get a new slot because there's no slots in Type Soul, so you got to go make an alt, which is kind of dumb. I don't know why you can't make a slot in a game which have multiple progressions. You would want to make a slot, and it's just stupid. Just make slots, bro. There's no way that's that crazy. In Peroxide, you can make a new slot. You can play on your main slot after finishing it and progress for crystals, for like enchants in that term, accessories, skills, visored, just going for anything depending on what your race is, obviously, and what class you went. But there is a lot of stuff to do in Peroxide for your replayability. Which is actually kind of cool. You don't have to make it all to go play the game again on a different slot. Obviously, rounding that all up, 5 points of the content section goes to Peroxide out of 5. We're going to give the first point for content to Peroxide. The first point goes to Peroxide. Next, we're going to talk about the next category is mechanics. Mechanics is the next category, and we're going to go right into it. Controls. Controls in the mechanics section goes to Type Soul. It's pretty obvious. The controls are just better. The layout's better. I feel like it's a lot more user-friendly, and you can edit how you run, edit how you flash up. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to give that one to Type Soul. It's not even a question, honestly. The next thing we're going to talk about is movements. It's pretty much just depending on what you like, I guess. So a lot of people actually do like Peroxide's movement, but I like Type Soul's movement in general. I'm not talking about running around the map and flash stepping all around the map. Obviously, Peroxide has a way faster pace of moving around the map. But in terms of overallness and just like how the game fluidity is movement-wise, I'm going to give that to Type Soul hands down. I just like fluidity in a game. They have it down to a T. Now let's talk about PvP. I'm going to talk about PvP first because it's the easiest one to get out the way. And I don't think if anybody tries to argue with me on this, you can talk to a brick wall because I'm not arguing with you on which game has the better PvP. The better PvP is going to Type Soul. It's not a question. It has the better PvP. That is it. It has the better PvP. I do not care. Even though after the PvE updates or the PvP updates for Peroxide for the evasive cooldowns, you can add all that. But overall, I like the PvP aspect better on Type Soul than I do Peroxide. So far we're down to like a 3 out of 3 for Type Soul. But the last point, PvE, I'm going to give this to Peroxide. I just think Peroxide has the better PvE because if you look at like what you're fighting against and like how much difference there is in PvE, Peroxide has more variety, way more variety in PvE, and the quality is just better in PvE. Now, obviously, sometimes it gets annoying because of the health of the NPCs, but I just think that the PvE in Type Soul just kind of like, it just very lacks like variety at all. You're just doing the same thing over and over and over again in Type Soul. So yeah, I'm going to give that to Peroxide. which gives out the mechanics category a 3-1 lead to Type Soul. So Type Soul gets the mechanics category. So right now, content-wise, Peroxide is better, and mechanics-wise, Type Soul is better. So at a 1-1 right now in terms of which game is better. Now for the next category we're going to talk about, it's progression. Now there's 2 types of progression I want to talk about. I want to split these up into 2 things. And the first thing I want to talk about is XP gain. The first thing I'm going to say about Type Soul's XP gain is rank cooldown. There is a rank cooldown in Type Soul. It's still in the game. I don't care how much they try to remove it. Until they fully remove it, it's still in the game. It needs to be removed. It's a negative to your game at this point. It's not cool. It's not like it's making the player have to wait to rank up. I don't care if you can stack XP on top of it. It's just a stupid thing to have. It was cool in the first week because people couldn't beat the game, but now it's just dumb. Peroxide has a better leveling experience. Hands down, it just has a better leveling experience, and I don't care what anybody else says about that. Like, Peroxide just has a better leveling experience in general. When you first get in the game as a holo, yes, both games kind of suck, but at least in Peroxide, different enemies count for a different amount of kills when you're progressing. That's how I'm going to rank these games' progressions, is mainly off of holo progression, because it's always the hardest for some reason. We need to get some love to holos, by the way. I don't even go holo on most of my builds. I just don't think that it's fair that they get the craziest progression of all time on every game. So obviously I'm going to give XP gain to Peroxide. And now the next thing I'm going to talk about in progression is your Bankai, your Res, and your Volt. I'm just going to skip over Shikai. I'm going to skip over Shrift. I'm going to skip over Partial. I'm going to start talking about Bankai, Res, and Volt, and Bankai, Segunda, and Volt. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's what I'm really talking about. So the diversity in Type Soul in different quest lines, like you have to fight your Bankai versus like you have to go find all this stuff. And like, that's cool that you had diversity. Okay, when you're a holo, you have to go on an Elden Ring exploration for no reason. Like, I just don't think that's. I think it should just be a fight. Well, in Peroxide, Bankai, Res, and Volt, they're different stages, amount of stages, but they're all 3 fights. They're all 3 fights, which that makes it a lot more like very simple and they're way more easier, obviously. But like, I just think that it's just a faster progression, which is better for the health of the game. So I'm gonna give this one to Peroxide. You can argue with the wall. Bankai, Res, and Volt, and XP gain go to Peroxide. Progression in general goes to Peroxide. So that's a 2-1 lead. But there's one more feature I want to talk about that a lot of people don't talk about enough. They don't talk about this enough. Free features. You don't need to pay a single thing in Peroxide. If you really don't want to, you don't have to, because you can just go to the AFK world, go to sleep, wake up, have a couple rerolls, and just stack up essence and just get rerolls for whatever you want. They have product essence, and you can spend those product essence on whatever you want. You don't get a specific code for a specific thing. You get product essence, and you can use the product essence from a code, or you can AFK for product essence in general and just get product essence and get rerolls. You don't need to spend money on the game. You really don't. While in Type Soul, it's pay to win. It's so pay to win. And I paid for it. Obviously, I paid for rerolls. I got flour. I did all this stuff to get like what I wanted, but it's still stupid to put a paywall behind content in the game like that bad. It like how bad it is. It's okay to put content behind a paywall when it's a very like one-time thing, or if it's rerolls and it's kind of not that expensive. But in Peroxide, even what they do charge you, it's fair. It's a fair price. 100 or 200 for a reroll. That's a fair price. Versus Type Soul, it's still a bank robbery, and they already lowered the price beforehand. It was even worse. It's still bad right now. I just think that overall, having free features in your game and having content not locked behind a massive paywall into luck in the first place, which is like a gacha system at this point, I just think it's stupid, especially with no pity. Like, if you got no pity and your prices are that outrageous, that's kind of insane. But yeah, overall, I would say the free features in general will obviously go to Peroxide, because they just incentivize. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about Type Soul. Like, you can get Shikai rerolls in raids. Like, nobody's grinding 10 hours for one reroll, bro. Like, no one's gonna grind that long for one reroll when they could just AFK Peroxide and get a reroll in like 2 hours, or if they had premium 1 hour. Like why would you do that? You know? But that's my opinion. We got content going to Peroxide. We have mechanics going to Type Soul. We have progression going to Peroxide, and we have free features going to Peroxide. That sounds pretty good, right? That sounds pretty good. So we have 3-1. Now, obviously, if you're going to talk about the overall game, I'm going to say Peroxide is better. But if you want to talk about a PvP game or a fighting game where you have to progress in, it's going to go to Type Soul. But right now, there's nothing to do after you progress in Type Soul. There's really nothing fun to do. Like, clan raids is cool, but it's only a step in the right direction. They need to take farther steps into progressing their game, into being a better game. If they keep doing updates, it'll obviously be on par with Peroxide, but I'm pretty sure Peroxide is going to come out and blow away the competition in terms of content. So good on them for making such an amazing game. I was here in wave 1. I remember where the game came from, and they've done an amazing job making it a way better game and a way better experience for users. So congrats to the Peroxide devs, congrats to the community. You guys made an amazing game, and I'm super excited for the release. Hopefully you guys are too. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. If you guys did, make sure you guys leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys later, and peace out.